Coming up on 511 right now, several major websites are scrambling to fix holes in their systems after an internet bug puts the identities of millions of people at risk.
Yeah, this is something you're going to want to pay attention to. Here to tell us more about the Heartbleed bug and how to protect yourself is Jim Kelly, the Information Security Officer at Mission Health and a former 4-time Super Bowl quarterback, if I remember correctly. Jim, good morning to you. And this, we were just talking a moment ago, this is really serious. Tell us more about the Heartbleed bug.
This is very serious. This is a vulnerability that affects thousands and millions of websites out there, and it affects them because it attacks the actual infrastructure of the sites that you connect to. And it isn't an attack against your personal computer. So why this is so expensive in terms of fixing the vulnerability is that all the service providers have to go out and find out where they're vulnerable and fix those vulnerabilities.
What does this mean to the average person at home? How are we affected?
Yeah, it means you need to be very careful about the sites you're connecting to.
Okay.
Your machine could be up to date, could have the latest virus definition files, and you could still fall victim to this vulnerability.
So one of the things we were just talking about is steps for you to take pretty much right away are to change all of your passwords and not something that you've ever used before.
Yeah, security experts are recommending that you check with your service provider first before you go and change the passwords. If you change them right away, the problem could be you could be vulnerable again if they haven't patched their website. So check with your service provider. Certainly wouldn't hurt to change your passwords. If the memory was leaked and someone got a hold of your username and password, changing it would help, but you need to be aware that you need to change it multiple times until that website has been patched, whether it be your bank or some other service provider.
And what is compromised specifically? I mean, are we talking social security numbers? What are we talking?
Depends on the site. So that's what makes this so dangerous. Whatever happens to be in memory at the time that the hacker connects to this website is vulnerable. Could be social security numbers, and it depends on the site. It could be your bank account information if it was your bank. It could be anything that has to do with your personal identity, and it could be the private keys that actually secure the communications themselves.
And how does this affect the hospital then?
So the hospital had to go through and remediate all of its sites just to make sure that we were not affected. Fortunately, we do not use this version of OpenSSL for our internal website, so we were not vulnerable to this, but some of our third-party service providers were.
Okay.
They're lucky to have you. Good thing that you're on the case there, Jim.
And Jim's going to join us coming up in the next half hour because there's not one but two major internet breaches right now that could affect you. We're going to talk more about the Experian breach coming up in our next half hour. Something a little different and also equally as scary. Jim, thanks so much. Two major security breaches in just a week put your passwords, credit card information, and your emails at risk. The Heartbleed bug affected popular websites like Google, Yahoo, and Amazon.com.
A lot of the ones that you probably use, and you want to pay attention to this. Joining us this morning is Mission Health's Information Security Officer, Jim Kelly. Jim, thanks very much for coming in. Now, so tell us a little bit more about this Heartbleed bug.
So this Heartbleed bug is a vulnerability against OpenSSL, which is used primarily about 66% of all websites that are out there, and it actually attacks the communication channel that sets up the security. So that's what makes this so dangerous, is that you can no longer rely on the security of those websites, and they need to be patched.
We're talking 66% of websites. I mean, this probably affects pretty much anybody then who's using a computer. Is that right?
Pretty much. If you connect to the internet to transact business, it can affect any of those sites that you're connecting to. Banks primarily are using a different form of SSL. That's a good news, but most other sites are using this OpenSSL.
What does this mean for the hospital?
So we had to check all of our sites to ascertain if they were susceptible. Fortunately, we don't use this version of SSL in most of our locations, so we were able to patch the ones that did and get them corrected.
What does it mean for the rest of us? Obviously, the companies that we deal with have to apply their own patches to their websites. What can we do in the meantime?
So I think the best thing that we can do as consumers is to change our passwords and change them often. That's just best practice anywhere you go. What the hackers can steal here is information that's in memory on these web servers. That can include your usernames and passwords. So change those. Don't use the same password for multiple sites. Create a unique, strong password for each site, and then use a password manager like LastPass, LASTPASS, and LastPass.com is actually a site that you can go and download this password manager, and it actually checks for the Heartbleed vulnerability on all sites that you connect to that you use for your password management.
Okay, so we can actually find out maybe if we're at risk there, but
That's right.
But no matter what, change your passwords just to be sure.
And always keep an eye on your credit report. That's
Yeah.
that's the most important thing.
Sounds like the only safe place for passwords these days is right up here. Well,
right.
thanks very much for joining us, Jim.
You're welcome.